Surprisingly enough, blades have a great role in One Piece's story. For example, many of the various strongest characters in One Piece world are blade users. From Pirate King to most of his rivals and his right-hand man. And many of the Yonko and legends of the future. Hello everyone, this is Rock's Review and welcome to my second channel. Today we want to talk about the magic system of One Piece blades. And name all the supreme blades of One Piece world. Just like Devil Fruits, who have a lot of subcategories, the amazing magical swords of One Piece world have different type and different capabilities. We have the Skillful blades, Great blades, and Supreme blades. And also a subcategory called the Black blades. The very strongest character of One Piece world need a very strong blade so they can use their power. It's like giving a good gun to a very good gunslinger. It won't add to your overall power, but it can channel your powers better. For example, a gunslinger can do better with an amazing pistol than an old rusty one. Firstly, let's talk about 50 Skillful blades. They are the worst among the best. We only thought 3 of them so far. 2 of them belong to Tashigi and 1 of them belong to Roronoa Zoro. With any of these blades, you can easily cut through cities and destroy armies, but compared to the power of One Piece world, these are still insignificant weapons. 21 great blades are in fact much superior to the previous group. Most of the people that were impressed with the power of Zoro were also impressed with his sword Enma, the blade of Odin himself. Zoro was one of the most impressive fighter of Alliance in the Wano arc, and it's safe to say that his blade was one of the greatest factor behind his power. The hellish blade Enma was a perfect example to showcase the great power of great blades. And again, we have 21 of these blades, but only 5 of them is known to us. One of them is Wada Ichimonji, the white blade of Zoro that carries the meaning of friendship and the promise he once made as a child to his friend Kunia. It is forged by Shimitsuki Kozaburo and belonged to the Shimitsuki family, the bloodline of Ryuma, the sword god himself. The other one was so magical that Luffy was convinced to use that instead of his legendary sandals. We are talking about Nendai Ketetsu, the blade that was crafted by the ancestors of Kuzuki clan and was passed down from Tama to Luffy to Zoro. And this blade is a cursed blade, which is a different category on its own. Many people believe that cursed blades are in fact a curse upon its user, but truth is different. They are cursed blade because they can showcase a tremendous amount of power, and no mere user can use a cursed blade. This type of blade use so much energy that they will end up killing the user of this blade. 2 other of great blades were used by Kuzuki Oden, which later on one of them passed down to Zoro and another one to Momonosuke. The other blade of Oden was Ame no Habakiri. The name of this blade is directly coming from the Japanese mythology. In the mythology, this was in fact the blade of the storm god himself, Susanoo. And this legendary swordman of a god used this blade to kill Orochi, one of the most vicious monsters of Japanese mythology. So while all of us were impressed with Enma, Ame no Habakiri could very well be even a better sword. If you are impressed with Kuzuki Oden, notice that one man in the land of Wano was obviously much better than him. I'm talking about Shimitsuki Ryuma, the sword god of the land of Wano. And his blade is also a great blade, Shusui. Again, this blade was used by Zoro. So Zoro used 4 of the 5 known great blades. Shusui is not just a great blade, it's a black blade. And we don't know much about black blades. Just like cursed blade, they are a subcategory of blades. But we know that only 2 characters in a story permanently made their blade black. We know that monsters of hockey like Shanks and Roger failed to make their sword black. So the secret of making your sword black should not be an easy task. It is very shocking to me that the sword god of One Piece world is not having a supreme blade. But perhaps this will add to the weight of Ryuma's hype. That this man single-handedly stopped the entire world from invading Wano and he wasn't even using a supreme blade. And I genuinely believe that Zoro failed to fully use the potential of Shusui, since he wasn't able to unlock the power of a black blade. I am sure he didn't know how to fully use this legendary blade. Therefore, he performed better with Enma. And we know for a fact, if Enma was turned to a black blade, it would grade up and will become a supreme blade. Meaning swords can also power up. And if any sword become black, it would actually become stronger. Meaning back then, Sushi was just a skillful blade, but Ryuma turned it to a great blade. But now, let's talk about the most juicy subject, the supreme blades, the strongest blades out there. The most amazing fact about these blades is that we only know 3 of them so far, while there are officially 12 of them out there. The first of them is a black blade that belongs to the world's strongest swordsman, Mihawk. It's called Yoru, and it is called the strongest black blade out there in the world. One of the reasons that I believe Mihawk is above Rayleigh, Ryuma, and anybody related to Zoro is the fact that he should be the strongest match he will ever face. Mihawk having the strongest black blade while Ryuma having a black blade is an obvious point in his favor. Just a mere swing of this sword destroyed a vast proportion of a gigantic ice. And this was the most casual swing of this sword. The performance of every single admiral was better than Mihawk in Marineford, but I do expect him to shine way better in future arcs. The next blade belongs to the true rival of the Pirate King, Whitebeard. This blade is called Murakumogiri, the Breaker of Clouds, and it was the primary weapon of the world's strongest man. Though the blade skill of Whitebeard was the least impressive thing about him, he still was immensely great in using his blade against Odin. And of course, he used this weapon to have a clash with Roger. Which brings us to the next person who have a canon supreme blade, Roger the Pirate King. His golden blade is called Ace. Yes, this was the beloved sword of the Pirate King. So much that his son is named after his blade. We only saw 2 attacks from this sword and both of them were out of this world. One of them is that he sent a non-prime Odin like a fly away, and though Odin wasn't defeated, this was one hell of a Kamusari. And of course, the next epic attack is when he and Roger had a world-shattering clash, which broke the internet and all of our minds. But that's it, we are 1100 chapters in, and 3 is the number of all the Supreme Blades that we know. And now the favorite part of my job starts. Let's take random guesses and take credit if I were right. 2 of the admirals who actively use a sword as their primary weapon. Now, to be perfectly honest, I believe that both of these individuals are far more relying on their devil fruits than their sword skill. As far as I know, the bloody Dark King really doesn't even have a Supreme Blade. The odds of these 2 people having a supreme blade is very low, especially knowing the fact that both of their blade is not even that good looking. But I think I have to acknowledge the fact that these 2 might have a supreme blade. And by the way, let's call the sword of every character that we don't know. And let's call Green Balls the Slaughterland. But now let's talk about a very, very high possibility. It only makes sense the strongest pirate alive and the rival of the world's strongest swordsman also have a supreme blade. Especially if this individual resemble Roger in every possible way and also have a golden blade. We know that the name of Shanks' blade is Griffin. And Oda said this blade was so insanely strong that apparently didn't need the help of any type of haki to stop the magma of Akainu. To be honest, I always loved the idea if Shanks had a shape-shifting weapon. Now, I believe Shanks is above Mihawk, and I believe swordsmanship is about the sword skill and not overall power. But I also want Mihawk to get all the hype that he can get. If somehow Griffin be a shape-shifting blade, everybody gonna go home happy. And it is 99.99% a supreme blade. The next blade belongs to the character that we only saw for one panel but freaked all of us out. I'm talking about Fickleland Garling. Fickleland Garling is not just the leader of Holy Knights and the judge of gods in Holy Land. He's also probably father, grandfather, or uncle of Shanks, or possibly a rival of Whitebeard. The influence of this man can easily rival any of the Gorosei, because even Gorosei don't dare to kill a celestial dragon. Oda drew this character with a blade for a reason. I previously made a short and said, if this blade don't be a supreme blade, I will shave my own head, and I tend to stand by my own word. And I already have a perfect name for this blade. I want to call it the executioner. You see, because he's a judge, the judge, jury, and executioner. But wait, some of you might be yelling, "Hey Rocks, you forget about one of the canon Supreme Blades." Which I would reply, I didn't forget, I just wanted you to scream at me that you forgot it so you'd be like embarrassed. Yes, we also know the name of another Supreme Blade, Shodai Kitetsu. Perhaps the strongest cursed blade in One Piece world. We have 3 Kitetsu in One Piece world, and this was the first and the strongest of them. And I somehow believe that the owner of this blade is in fact the Gandhi dude from the Gorosei. I'm saying me, I mean vast majority of fanbase just presume that that man has this blade. None of us have a good reason, but sometimes dreams come true. And being the strongest among the cursed blade means that this blade is probably the deadliest weapon out there. But let's talk about the last 2 options. We know for a fact that Rocks D. Zebek also had a sword. Now you tell me, this man had the strongest crew by far, had the greatest empire in a history of New World among pirates, and he was so strong he almost took down the world government. Do you think this kind of person is worthy of a Supreme Blade? I mean, if he's not, who is? In fact, I do hope not only a Supreme Blade, just like Mihawk, he should have a Supreme Black Blade, because Rocks Zebek is exactly that amazing. And I'm probably a bit biased because I'm Rock's review. But don't go anywhere because we have one final nominee. We all know that Luffy is the second Joy Boy, but Joy Boy is the person who has the devil fruit of Sun God Nika, meaning Nika and Joy Boy aren't the same person, but Joy Boy is using the power of Nika. And we have some silhouette of Sun God Nika. And guess what? In that silhouette, he clearly is using a blade. Now, who is more worthy to wield the Supreme Blade than the freaking Sun God of One Piece world? With no feat and hype, all of us can agree that Joy Boy was probably the strongest character that this world has ever seen. But Nika has to be even above Joy Boy, because Joy Boy is a Walmart version of the actual, literal Sun God. So we don't know if Nika existed or not, and we had the Age of Mythology in One Piece or not, but if he existed, based on the silhouette, then based on common sense, he should have an absolute amazing Supreme Blade. And I also have an amazing name for Zebek and Nika's blade. I'm gonna call Zebek blade the Mooncatcher. And since Nika is an ancient character, I'm gonna call his blade the Blade of Freedom. This is probably not my A game, but I'm satisfied. With all of that said, this is everything you need to know about One Piece blades and their magic system. I hope we end up seeing all of the 12 Supreme Blades, and I see you all at Laugh Tale. Don't forget to subscribe.